Welcome back, everyone who took the break or didn't take a break and you're just powering on through watching these in a marathon. Why are you doing that? Don't do that. Go read a book, listen to a podcast. We might have some recommendations here at the end that we just started talking about.
You could put this up on OSS.
The list? Yeah. I'm gonna write that down so that one of us will do that.
Probably you, but you guys can, if you go on the OSF, since it's open, you can contribute to that list. Yes, we can set it so you can.
It's public, so if you have an
It's
OSF,
public.
you should be able to. All right, we had just finished up plotting two variables. We come up with this. I'm going to run this again. So we have our beautiful plot with a linear, like we have our regression line on here, but there was a really great question that was posed that maybe we don't care about these states that have the same like one-to-one in-state out-of-state. We should try to get rid of those. And we had talked last time about selecting and filtering variables, and that will come in handy now. So what I'm going to do, you don't have to have this separate. I am just chunking these pieces up so that it's easier to follow in what we're doing. So I'm going to create another code chunk here at the bottom underneath our ggplot with two variables. And what I'm going to say is we'll do ggplot. I'm going to just put the number 2 so that we know that it's two variables or 2v. And then let's put like a filtered data set. And what we're going to want to do, and this is where our piping and the things that we talked about last week and this week last session. I don't know when you watched this last. Who knows? It could be years. We are going to combine those two components, which is really exciting. Get excited. So thank you, Kate. We are going to be taking our tuition data set. And one thing, so there might be a couple different ways that we could do this. I'm just viewing our tuition data set again, adjusting windows so we can see a little bit more. And right now, it seems like we don't, from looking at the data, it's hard to identify what are these colleges that have same in-state and out-of-state. One way that we could do this is to create a new variable, and at least this is how I was thinking of doing it. Feel free to chime in with other ideas, is take our in-state tuition and subtract our out-of-state tuition. And then we would have a variable that would be, for those that they're equal, it would be 0. And then we can use that as an anchor to then filter based on that variable. Are there other ideas or thoughts that we have out in the universe?
Can you filter without creating a new variable?
You need to have a, let's see. Let's try it. Yeah, I think we might be able to.
Okay.
Let's give it a shot. Who knows? It's the Wild West right now. No, it's not. What we're going to do, because we're still working with our tuition data set, we are going to take that, and I want to say I'm going to use it, and then I want to pipe. Again, you can use your keyboard shortcut, which should be Control-Shift-M, I think is the default. I have it set to Alt-I for some reason. I don't know why. It was easy for my thumb to go there and then hit I. In case you need a refresher on what keyboard shortcuts are, you go up to Tools, Keyboard Shortcuts Help will show all of them. If you want to update them, like I have, you go to Modify Keyboard Shortcuts. So Tools, Modify Keyboard Shortcuts, filter based on Insert Pipe. So you could just type for pipe operator and then add your shortcut there. To add a shortcut, you will go into that section, and then once it's highlighted, you push the characters on your keyboard that you want to use. So right now I just put Alt-I. I could, if I wanted to, do a different combination just by entering them on my keyboard. So I don't know why. You can have it set to whatever you want. That's what I did. I do not remember why. I was thinking I for insert, and then like inserting a code chunk is Control-Alt-I. So it was like, I don't know. You can do whatever you want.
Do you mind reminding people quickly what the purpose of the pipe is, just in like a few sentences?
Yes, it is to indicate that I want to take what is on the left side of the pipe and basically funnel it into the next section. So you'll see that we'll build these pipes and we'll pipe one line of code into another and keep doing that. So instead of like we have maximizing this window, and then if we scroll up, this was the example that we had last time of either going through each time and creating a new object to work with and then refer. You can streamline that through with this above code in using pipes. So it's a lot, to me, it feels a lot easier, and especially as starting out, this is how you'd think about it. You say, I want to take this data set, I want to remove this variable, and then I want to do this, and then I want to do this. It's not, I want to take this, and then I want to select this and give it to something else, and then I want to take that thing and do another thing. Like, it just is a little bit more straightforward. That was way more than a couple sentences. So we are starting with our data set, and we are piping that into a filter function. So we can just say filter, and let's see if this works. Again, we're just trying it. So I am just looking so I can have both my console and my, our Markdown document up there, because I want to again take a look at the names of tuition. So names, open parenthesis, tuition, hitting enter on that, so that we want to see, and I should just remember these, but again, it's good to just have this information. So we want to filter if in-state tuition is the same as out-of-state tuition. And so we are going to say in_state_tuition. And remember, when we are trying to equate one thing to another, we have to use the double equal sign. Equal, and then out_of_state. And you can see it's starting to try to fill it in. It's like, hey, did you mean this? I don't want you to mess up again like you always do. In-state, out-of-state tuition. And if we do that, let's see, it does give us something. So it's going to output that because we didn't ask it to put it anywhere. We just said, hey, can you do this? And RStudio and R is like, yeah, I can. Take a look at this. And so it does it, and then you're met with this big line of this big chunk of code, or it's right underneath it in your Markdown document. And let's see. So now it's tough to really see what that means. And like, we don't really know. One way to just do it, to take a look at that, is we can assign it to a new object. You can make as many objects as you need to. That is okay. So again, remember, I'm at the beginning of our statement here where it says tuition, and I'm just going to make another data object, and we'll name it filtered. Just filtered. You can name it whatever you want. Again, it doesn't matter. And then we need the assignment operator again. This is the less than dash, or in, oh, what did I, nope, see, there we go. My keyboard shortcut for that, I have set to Alt dash, and that might be what the default is. I'm not sure. So there's our assignment operator, and we can run that. And now you don't get that output. It's just like, hey, I did it, and I put it in the thing that you called filtered. So we can take a look at that. Just as a first glance, you do see that the compared from tuition to filtered, we do see a difference in number of observations. So that is promising. That shows that it might have worked in what we were doing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll over. I just viewed the filtered. We're looking here at the filtered data. And if we look at in-state tuition, one thing that's nice within our studio that you can do is you can click on the actual column and it will sort based on that. And this is just, you're just visualizing it. It's not actually changing anything in the data. The data is still all the same. And you can see that now we have in-state, out-of-state is identical. What is... How is that? So that's not a lot of money for tuition. Is this? Okay.
I know one public school actually changed their tuition, increased it only to be more competitive, not because they wanted to, because they didn't want to look like they were too much of a steal. True story.
Oh, there we go. We got Columbia, University of Chicago as the tops. Most expensive for in-state, out-of-state. But we can do an estimation. We see that both the in-state and out-of-state are identical. And so we didn't have to compute a new variable to do this. We were able to identify where those are. And you might be thinking, but this is the opposite of what we asked. We wanted to get rid of those that were the same. And you're right. So now we need to see what that is. So the thing that we need to change here is our filter statement. I am going to go ahead and copy and paste this and just put it below. You don't have to do this. You can just modify this. I'm going to put a note here. Again, we're trying to make this as a resource for our future selves. You're your own worst collaborator, so try to make yourself a better collaborator with yourself and make some comments. So I'm going to say filtering based on identical tuition in versus out of state. And then down here below, what we want to say is when are these, so the only thing that we need to modify here is our filter command. We now want to say, I only want to keep cases where they are not the same. And to do that in R, so let's go back to, oh, I should hide this so it's a little bit, there we go. I'm going to go and search for not identical in R. And we're just going to go to our documentation. That's not helpful. It is not identical. These are operators. So these are comparison operators. And for the most part, they are equal across programming languages. So you'll see that it might be talking about different things, but we want to look at these equality operators. And you can see that here we have equals equals. That's what we've been working with. That's when they are identical. Whereas exclamation point equals is not equal. And that is what we're going to be using, is that not equal to expression. And if we navigate now back, we are going to take one of the equal signs out and replace it with an exclamation point. And let's make sure that if we were to run this, it would replace the filtered data set that we have above. So if you're doing it separately, that's okay. You can also just add another add another component here, and I'm just doing this to show the differences. You don't have to do it this way, and you'll have my code later on so you can refer back to it. You don't need to do it this way and then confuse your future self. So I am going to run that, and you can see that filtered 2 is slightly smaller than filtered, and it is different than our tuition data set. And we would expect if you do some addition between 1492, 1481, we get 2,973. So this is the complete data set. We just basically split it based on whether or not this function, whether or not they have the same in-state, out-of-state.
Just to add in a quick thing, if you did filtered and you didn't do filtered 2, it's fine. It'll just replace the first data set with the second. So if you click on something different, I mean, this might be obvious, but just to kind of state it plainly. But that's something that you always need to watch out your labels for, because I've done that before. And the best way to clear up any confusion is to clear your workspace with a little broom in the corner of your R studio, and then start over again.
Yep. Or if you did that and you can just replace that operator, put it back to double equals, and then run it again. But this is more of just to highlight what these differences are, and then we'll use this, we'll create another kind of section to go through the code and how we then visualize this. So I'm going to say filtering based on non-equal tuition for in versus out of state. So now we have our data set. We can take a quick look at it by clicking on filtered 2, or if you just ran filtered, that's okay too. You can just view it again. And if we look here at in-state, out-of-state, we do see that there are discrepancies. Looks like there's quite a few where 1,380 was a good number. Oh, all in California. Okay. Now we identified a way to filter the data set and get it to where we want it. And now we need to visualize it. And what I'm going to do is just right below this, this is what I would have done initially without needing to do these first 2 steps. What you can do is take this section that we created. We know that this gives us the data set that we want. What I'm going to do is copy and paste. I'm going to put a comment that just says, now we visualize that data set. And this is where we are going to be combining our piping with our ggplot. And before the break, we were able to identify that this ggplot 2 variables section that we had was the one that we wanted. And so what we can actually do is just copy that section of code. I'm going to highlight all of it, Control C or Command C if you're in Mac. And one line right below here, I'm pasting it. And so it might look a little complex right now, but we will walk through each step of this. You don't need to run it now because it won't work just yet. What we need to do, so we have our tuition. We know that this part works. We're piping it into this filter command. We are saying I don't want in-state and out-of-state tuition to be identical. And then we need to give that output, whatever that data set is that we have created, and we can pipe that then into our ggplot. Because we have piped it, we can take away, we don't want tuition data, we want what we created up here. We want this data to continue through. So we can actually delete tuition and the comma. And now with this section, now if you just go and to any line in this section here of the code that we just wrote, or copy pasted really, because we had those components. With Control Enter, you can see now, because of the data set that we've asked for, we have filtered it out, we have done all those things, and it is all in a single section of code instead of needing to first create the data set and then transfer into it. So this is one way to combine piping and ggplot. And now we see that there is a linear trend, which I'm sure none of us are surprised about, but it is nice to see that now after removing that, and we can rename the title, or let's add a subtitle, which if we go back, I am going back to our cheat sheet, and I think subtitle is just in the lab section saying subtitle equals. Yep. So here I'm going to do, at the end of title, after the comma, hit return or enter, say subtitle, and then say removal of identical or of equal in state and out of state. And then we have to do end the quotes and then add another comma because this is still, we want it to keep continuing on. And if we run that again, just putting your cursor anywhere in there. Oh, see, and now it's like, because we changed the plot title and not the plot subtitle to move it. Let's see if just adding, I'm going to do comma here at the end of the theme and just see if maybe saying plot subtitle. Yeah, look at that. And then we can just copy what we had above so that these will line up. Now let's see if that works. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Thank you. You might be thinking, well, I don't like the shapes or the color of the dots. So we can, let's take a look at how we would change that. So to change the shape or to change the color, you can also change the diameter of each of these. We need to be going into our aesthetic, and it is the aesthetic of the geom point of the particular layer that we put on that has the point on it. Because what is really nice is you can manipulate each of the layers that you're putting on differently. So it might be the case that you want the dots in your scatter plot to be one color, and then you want the line to be a different color. And you can do that because we have different layers of point and different layers of smooth. So to just update our points, inside the parentheses of geom point, we're going to say AES, parenthesis, and then let's take a look back at, we just need to say shape equals, or let's see. Oh, I see. We need to add, okay, if you want to specify, you can have the data identify what kind of shape it is, and maybe it's based on, let's see if this will work. Maybe it's based on the states. We want all of the same states to be the same shape. And we can say AES shape equals, and I have forgotten what I got. I think it's state code, but now I'm just going down. I hit Control-2 to go into the console, and I'm going to type names of tuition, and let's see, hit Control-1 to go back, and it looks like it is state code. So let's see what this does. State underscore code. So it's like there are too many, we don't have enough shapes to handle what you just asked of us. So it does, it's like, I'm just going to stop at Colorado and we're good. I did it. We're done. Maybe we can use different colors. Let's take a look back at this. And it might be the case that we want, I think it's fill equals. So instead of shape, since that didn't work, it's still inside our geom point AES, we are going to say fill. Okay. That did not work. And it is most likely the case because if you remember, we went into our console and said str to get the structure of what the state code was. And so if we do tuition, because we need to tell it what data set we want to look at, tuition state code, oop. It is a character. So it's like, hey, all of these things that you asked me are kind of the same thing. So they're all characters, so I just fill them all the same. We can go into a little bit more. Let's see if we...
Just a quick question while we're moving to the next thing. So the question is, for all the commands separated by plus, does it matter which order they're presented in? Like title Y be specified prior to X, or geom smooth before geom point?
It usually does not. The only times that I have run into, that's a really good question. It is the fact, like it gets tricky when you have these themes. If you're really specifying different themes, then it gets sometimes adding a different text on top that usually can mess things up. Sometimes it's also the case if you're adding aesthetics that it will apply that then to the next line, but for the most part you shouldn't be running into any problems. And I see maybe we can try color. And it will most likely be a range. Yeah, there's so many states that like the colors are difficult to distinguish. Thank you for adding that. And you'll notice that it's not the American way to spell color. Let's see, I think that should also work. Yeah. So you can spell it however you would like to spell color. And then we have a very nice looking figure that we could likely publish very easily this way. One of the other components that I usually will play around with is the legend. Oftentimes that legend over on the side either it isn't working the way you want it, or you want to take it off completely. And I never remember how to do that, so let's find out together. Remove legend from Ggplot. There we go. So we can see most of the time Google is very good at helping us. So you can just remove the legend title with asking like the theme, saying giving it element blank, or you can hide the entire legend by adding in our theme, say legend.position equals none. And let's see. So if we were to take that, we already have our theme in here. We have theme here. So we're messing with the plot title, our subtitle. And so at the end here, we're going to do a comma and go down, and it was legend.position equals, and then in quotes, none. There we go. Now our legend is gone, and we don't know what any of these colors mean, but it looks really nice. How are folks doing with this? Any questions or comments, concerns with Ggplot. I might be able to help with other things, but I don't know what else is going on.
I love all of these colors. It's a nice looking.
It is. I really like it too. And
probably not particularly informative by state, but it's beautiful.
Yes, it is. And you can, there are a couple ways to export this information. You can just hit export and save it as an image or as a PDF. You can copy it, paste it somewhere. Let's see if I copy it. Let's see if I can just paste it in our chat here, if it lets me. No, it's like, I don't know what you're trying to copy. What are you doing? That is one way to save it. The other way that you can do that in line, in code, is underneath. You can type gg save, and then you want to say what you want to name the file. And in this case, what I usually like to do is I in the workspace, in the folder that I have on my desktop or wherever this lives, I usually like to add a new folder and have this be plots or figures or whatever makes sense. So then I know that all of my plots are in there. And it might be the case then. So now we have that named. And then when we go in our gg save function, I'm going to pull up files here just so we can see the file structure again. You can see our plots is there. In quotes, we will say plots because remember our main focus is right here in this directory. We don't have to say anything else. So we have plots, and then look, I already forgot if it's / or \\. So we'll give it a shot. And maybe this is figure 1. And usually it saves as a PNG, so you type PNG there, and this will save the last plot that you viewed. So it's going to save this one right here. And it saves it. You can see down here in the console we have it saved. And then if we go into our folder under plots, there it is. You can name it whatever you want after that /. And then now you can put that into a paper. I think now we want to transition to merging data sets. Or would we like to take a minute and try another visualization?
What would you all like to do? You can just kind of vote in the chat. Oh, how to add the Wes Anderson package. Yeah, let me.
Oh no, Kate, you've converted.
So first it's install.packages. Yeah, where does it go in your, great. So I'll quickly I'm gonna look for my code for the Wes Anderson package that I've used in Ggplot. Maybe while we go to start merge data, I'll just insert it. So if it's something you want to mess around with.
Sounds good. I like it. And you can even just search for Ggplot themes. And this is the tidyverse.
Yeah, that's what I did.
What's that?
That was my first step. I just Googled Ggplot themes.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can see all these other themes that, this isn't that's where what we had, but you can start seeing that it can get complex, and you can facet data. So we could facet it based on different types of universities, maybe. But then you can see how it can, and there are folks that create just additional plots and things. And I would suggest, if you're on Twitter, to follow Thomas Mock and follow Tidy Tuesday. It's really cool to see these wonderful data visualizers put together their plots for this weekly visualization project. Now on to merging data sets. I'm going to save. We're going down. What I am going to do to make everything just nice and clean, I am going to restart my R session. And I would, make sure things are saved on your end. But we have everything written down, so there is no need for you to feel like you're going to lose anything. You'll be able to get back all of these pieces of information that we have. If you do feel hesitant to do that, that's okay, and you can keep going. And then later on, as you get more comfortable, you can feel better about restarting things.
Oh, we have a quick question from Sandra. It's, can you go back and fix spelling errors on images and tables, or do you have to redo the code once the document's created?
You have to go and rerun this section of code in order to fix anything in it. It's not like in SPSS where you are allowed to double click on an image and then tweak it like that. So it would be in here fixing spelling errors, like in here or something like that. Good question though.
You can also preview a document after you knit it, even if it takes a while, and then override it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about Markdown if we have time today. So I think that's exciting to me. All right. Excuse me. So one thing that's also really nice about the using a Markdown document is as you complete sections, you can hit the little downward arrow and it will minimize things. So I like to have a nice clean workspace to work within, and it just being able to only focus on the things that I need to focus on is really helpful. So that's something I like to explain. Right here, what I am going to do to just highlight some of the Markdown components. Before our first chunk, I am going to make a header, which is using the pound. I am outside of a code chunk, so now we're able to use regular text. And I'm going to say reading in data. And this is just for organizational purposes. We'll see what it does later on. And then we had visualizing data was right here. So I am going to create another header and say visualizing. This will not impact how your code is run or anything. We'll see what it looks like later on. And then here I am going to make another header and have it be merging data. So here we will create a new code chunk. I'm going to do something that I have said I've informed others not to do, just so that it is organized in a more coherent way, not how I would present this document. I am going to load data in the middle of a Markdown file. I would advise everyone not to do that and have data loaded in all at once at the beginning. But again, this is just for instructional purposes. So here, yes, be shocked. I'm going to put a comment that says, always load data at the beginning together. Okay. Again, future self might not like it when I try to run code later on that depends on a data set that is buried somewhere. You want to try to make things as organized for yourself as possible. What we're going to do here is we are going to actually go to our OSF page. which Kate, you linked to that in the chat. Is that right? Let me see if I can find that.
Let me pull it up again.
So I'm just trying to navigate to our OSF page. The things, you'll see that most OSF links will not have this long URL. This is taken from our, like the email that we sent. It has some information about like what is being clicked. So usually OSF links will just be this nice little, oop, oh no. So I'm just copy and pasting that. Kate, did you already put that in there? Okay, cool. This is an OSF page. Again, if we have some time later on, we can talk more about what the Open Science Framework, or OSF, is and how it can be helpful. We're gonna continue to update this with some more information, but a lot of this information was from the email, and this can be a future source of help to you moving forward. But what we're gonna do is go to the data file. You can see down in files, there is a data folder, and then we have the college tuition data. This has all the data sets that so the one that we were working on, I kept it named as data. And then we have one about diversity, one about historic tuition, the salary potential, and tuition to income ratios, I think. So what we're gonna do is actually, we're going to download all of these just so we have them. I'm not sure which ones we want to merge together, but it'll be good to have all of them just in case. So I'm going to say download as a zip, and I'm going to save that. And now you can do with however you normally unzip files, you can do that. What I am going to do is unzip this, and then I'll show you what I am going to do with that information. So just 1 second, let me unzip the file. And my computer's been thinking very hard, so it's still thinking real hard. So now I have this after it's been extracted from the zip file. And these are all of the CSV files, and then just a simple text document that this has information about where I got the data. So if you ever want to go back, again, this is also here, which I will open this link up in a new tab so we can refer to it later on. What we are going to do is take all of the CSV files. So you can do a Control A if you need to, select all of them, or, oh man, my Explorer is not liking something. We want to move these data files into the data folder of our project. So if your computer is working faster than mine is, please do that now. So you can just copy, and then I have our workshop folder, and then in the data folder, I'm going to paste all of these, and you can replace that data file, the one that's called data. It's still the same exact data. If that's easier for you, that's okay. And it is okay if we have this text document in there. That's not going to cause a problem. Okay, now we have the data on our machines, and now we can go to the next step of reading in those data sets. So let's take a look. Now I'm going to the description of what each of the data sets are, just to be reminded of what are in them. And the idea that we need something to link the data sets together. Oftentimes within our own research, we have ID numbers of the participants, and that is what you would use to refer to merge data together. In this case, it looks like both the name, like the school name, state name, and oftentimes a state abbreviation. Those three components will be in most of these. So let's take a look at...
Just a quick check-in. Is everyone there yet, or how are we doing on getting that, getting data into your project? Leave a comment in the chat, no worries.
So what we can do now, it looks like all of them have some sort of, I think, taking this, let's see, we'll just take these first two since they're pretty straightforward. We want our tuition cost, which is a data set that we already have, that we've been using. This is the one that we have been using. And then we want to also import our tuition income. So we are going to navigate back to our workshop Markdown file. And what I'm going to do, just to, again, keep this all in one section. If you already have the data loaded, you don't have to do this. I'm going to copy this and paste it down here. So this could be its own, this is usually how it should be structured, where you have all of the data being loaded in at once. So in this R chunk, I'm going to name it data merging data for data merging. That makes more sense. So we have our tuition data set, and if we run that, we'll get our variables, get that data set. And then the one that we also need is, if we look, now I'm in the data folder on my computer. It was the tuition income. Is that, let's see. I named these just a little bit ago, and it's, yes, so tuition underscore income is the file that we want. And what we can do is copy this again, paste it, and we want to name it something different. So I'm just going to name it tuition underscore, or let's say just name it income. And then we know that we want to read, it's still a CSV, it's in that same folder, the data folder. So after the slash, we want that to be tuition underscore income. And if we run that line, now we have two, wow, there's lots more observations of the income data set. Let's take a look at that, what that looks like. Oh, I see. This is, So there are multiple based on the, I am not sure why there are multiple of the, oh, the different income levels and the overall net cost to students during the same year. Then maybe not this data set. I thought it was a little bit more straightforward than this. Let's see, what are the other data sets that we have? So let's look back at the Tidy Tuesday. We can go ahead and let's try this salary potential and see if there is, if that's a little bit more straightforward in how we would merge things. And you still can merge these pieces of information. It's just then what are you planning on doing with it and how you want to organize this information. It might be the case that you do have this kind of data where you have multiple data points for the same individual over time, and then that would be transitioning, which you may already be familiar with this, transitioning from like a wide to long format of the data. And that's another process that can work. In the meantime, why don't we try to, this is the income potential. So we're going to just type potential, use our keyboard shortcut for an assignment operator, read.csv. We are still in the data folder, and it was called salary pot underscore pot.csv, and we run that line, and that is a little bit more manageable. It might be the case that particular universities didn't have a projection for when what the salary would be, but we can still merge these based on the name of the university. So let's give that a shot. And to do this, we are going to be using dplyr again. So I am going to go up into help, use our cheat sheets for our data transformation with dplyr. So help, cheat sheets, data transformation with dplyr. And this is on this second page of dplyr, where we are looking at combining tables. And there are different ways to combine tables. You can, it's called a mutating join. Just in combining, you can just bind the columns together. So if you already have everything matched up and you don't care and you just want to put two together, you would use this call, this function. But oftentimes we actually care which row goes with which. And that's where this mutating join will come in. And it depends on what information you want kept. Oftentimes it might be the case that you have a complete list of participants in one, and then in the other data frame there is something missing. Maybe people didn't fill it out, or it's like a follow-up and it's not complete. So then when you put those two together, there are going to be some missing rows, or there will be missing data. And you need to be thinking about how you want that represented, and usually going with a full join is a good way to go. Left join just means that it joins all of the variables from Y first and then finds matches in X. Or do you just want the ones that have complete overlapping cases and want no missing values? Then you'd want an inner join. But for most of the work that at least I've done, you want this full join. You want everything involved there. So we're going to be using full join. And if we go back here to our workshop, what we can say, we need to assign this to a new data set. So this could be, you could name it whatever. I'm going to name it complete or final, or like use this one to run, or whatever you want to name it. This is going to be the combination of our tuition variable, our tuition data set, and our potential data set. And then we use our assignment operator, which in my case is alt dash, and we're going to say full join, full underscore join. Did I remove dplyr from, because it wasn't coming up? Oh, it's because I didn't run these initial libraries. So the reason why I was thinking, hey, it wasn't loaded, was it wasn't giving me a suggestion when I started typing full join. I know that that's a function within dplyr, so it made me clue into maybe this wasn't loaded. So let me load this again. Now I'm scrolling back down. Now if I were to type full join, it should. There we go. And then you tell it which one you want to be X. It doesn't matter when we're using full join. So we have tuition, and then we want to go by, and then merge that. Then, so comma potential, that's our second data set. And then we need to say by. And this is what do we want to merge them or match them on? And if we look here, I'm going to go back to our cheat sheet. It says by null. This is just if you want, it usually defaults to that because you might just be joining things. But oftentimes in our research, we want to do it by a particular column or a series of columns. So if we are to look back here at, I'm going to go down into our console and do names of tuition again, and then names, parenthesis, potential. See, I can't even spell, man. There we go. So we want to, let's make that a little bit larger. We want to merge on name. So we have name of the university in both of these data sets. We are also seeing that state name is here, which is most likely what in our tuition data set is named state. So those are still those are the same. Let's just double check to make sure. So we have our potential, we have state name, and that is the actual state written out. And then for tuition, here I'm going to close these other data sets because we aren't using them. So now that is state. That is, those are still the same thing, but we just have them named differently here. And this is also something that is really useful. I'm going to put a note here to make sure we talk about renaming variables, because I think that is really helpful. First, I want to just merge our data and we'll see what happens if we just merge by name. So we are going to say by name, and I don't believe you have to put it in quotes. We'll see if I'm wrong. We need a comma here after potential. That's why it was given me. It's like, hey, this doesn't make any sense. So we do need it in quotes, the name. And now we have a complete data set here. You can see that now it ran. We didn't get any errors. And there is a complete data set here that if we are to click on it, you will see that there is the name. This is of the merged data sets. And what is interesting is there were some, I'm noticing that the complete data set is larger than our tuition data set. So it looks like there were about 200 colleges that were in our potential, the one that's named potential, that weren't in tuition. So if we were to, that now there's some discrepancy there, but we were able to merge our data sets appropriately. And we just take a look at it. Now you can see that each of these are there. We have that state name again, and that's just being repeated. That's not something that we merged on. We need to do that. You might.
So we have a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We have a question. If you want to merge based on two variables, can you include them both?
Yes, you can. And that was, we want to first make sure that they're named the same, and then we can do that. So thank you for bringing that up again. That is really helpful, and we'll get to that in just a second. The one thing that I want to point out is oftentimes when you merge data sets, you'll have some variables that have a .x or a .y. So in this case, this was that like phantom column that we had, and .y means it came from the second data set in our call. So in this case, it was potential. If it has a .x, that means it came from the first data set, so .tuition. That can also be changed if you're annoyed with it saying .x or .y. If we look back at our cheat sheet, you can specify what the suffix is for your first or second data set. It defaults to saying .x, .y. you can have it say .tuition, .potential. And that is one way to get around that. But you will likely see those .x or .y's come up. Now when it comes to, let's rename some variables. Let's rename that, it was state name. We want to have that be just state. And there are lots of different ways that you can rename variables, and I always forget them. And that is where Google comes in very nicely. I'm going to just use this, and so if you are renaming a single variable, it should be fairly straightforward in that, let's see if this is, yeah, we are going to be, excuse me, we'll use the rename function. And this is within, you can see this is in dplyr. So when you see the two colons, that's how you unmask a function. And so this is saying that I want to use the rename function in the dplyr package. That's all that's saying. You don't have to write it like that though. Just if you see those two colons, that's what it will be. So I'm going to, we'll split screen here so that we can see all of it. And we want to do this before we join them together. So we want to be naming the potential. In our potential data set, we want to rename state name to just be state. And one way we can do that is by taking advantage of our pipe function, because we don't want to need to create then another data set that is potential with state name that's correct. We can actually just, on this line where we read in the data, we can add in our pipe, which for me is Alt-I or Control-Shift-M, I think. Hit enter, and we can type rename. And you'll notice that in this example that it will, there's an enter right here afterwards. Again, this is for aesthetics. It looks a lot nicer. It's easier to read, so I would suggest you trying to do that. I always get this mixed up because it feels backwards to me in the order that these go in. I think it is the existing name is on the right, and the name you want to, the new name is on the left. So we want state to be state name. I think that's correct. Let's see if we'll see if it works. If it doesn't, then we can update it. So now you can rerun this, and you can highlight it all, or you can just be in that one line and run that. And now if we take a look down in our console and go to names of the potential data set, we now have a variable named state. So it feels backwards to me that I would think you want this one to become this. Don't think like that. I don't know why, but it's backwards, it feels like. Now when we have this by function, so we have, I'm going to make this bigger again. We've been able to rename variables here. I'm going to put on this line, just say a comment to us saying that this is how and then I'm going to do this because I will always forget. Format is new name equals old name. Nope. Yes. Yes. And that will still run. It's just a comment, so it ignores all that stuff that is afterwards. And that's just helpful to do that.
Does that parenthesis bother you? The one over there on a new line?
This one here?
Yeah.
I think it bothers you, doesn't it?
It could.
It is there, so then it's easy to add more, like, it's just easy to kind of keep going. Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah, you can put it up here if you want.
Okay, I was wondering what your so I got a little lost in your point of putting it on the next line. That makes sense now.
Yeah, it will default to, like, when you hit return or enter after, like, so if we were to say we wanted to pipe again, you don't need to do this, it's just a show. When you have that and it has the closing or accompanying parenthesis, when you hit enter, it automatically, like, formats it that way, which is really nice.
That is really nice. It's also probably a better way to keep track of your parentheses.
Yep. Yeah.
I have that problem.
Yeah. And if you have comments, like, it would be easy to put a parenthesis over here, but because it's after the pound, it comments it out, and then that parenthesis is lost.
All right, we have a question.
Okay. It looks like, let's see. Is it connected to the potential data set here? I think that might be making sure that this pipe is here to pipe it into the rename function, that those components are still there. So I am going to copy this to see if you can attempt to use zero length variable name. I've run into that problem before, so I'm going to copy that, paste it in here just to So again, this is Stack Overflow, where you'll often have the title that will be exactly what you've encountered, and then we can see what some of the top answers are. It might be the case that check to see if some of the backticks may have gone away. Oftentimes that is tricky, or if like making sure that you're highlighting all of the code. So trying this entire section, highlight it, and then do Control Enter, or trying to run the entire chunk by hitting play. And then sometimes that, because of the way sometimes keyboard shortcuts, that can get tricky. But if you're still having that problem, once we take a break, we can revisit it. And now what we can do, because now we have two variables that line up and match, we can ask to combine the data sets by two options. And to do that, we have to concatenate. We have to make a list of what are the things we want to match it on. So remember, that is C open parenthesis, and then we want it to be on name, and then comma, quotes, state. And you'll notice that because we put the parenthesis at the beginning, it automatically assumed that parenthesis we already had was the end. And there's a little squiggle underneath this first parenthesis, and we get an error saying that there's an unmatched bracket. So we just need to add another parenthesis there. And then now we have merged it based on two types of variables. So if there are lots that you have overlapping, you're able to do that. And one thing that I'm just going to do so we can look at the differences between left join or right join, I'm going to go here and have so I'm going to say complete underscore left, and this will be a left join. And then let's see, do this again, just copy, paste. This will now be right. You don't need to do this unless you want to take a look at what these differences are. And I'm just really going to look at these variables. So the full join that we had is basically anyone and everyone who is in the data set will be included in this new data set. And that is why we are seeing a difference in total observations between our potential and the tuition, where tuition is 2,973, where our full join complete data set is larger than that. So it shows that there are some that didn't have a match, but you kept them anyways because that's what you wanted. Like that we said to keep everyone, keep a full join. The left join is we have tuition on the left side, so it's going to keep all observations there and then just give a match to the other one. So it is the same number of observations as our tuition data set, where then the right join is just the opposite. It's all observations that are in our potential. And now we're able to see what that would look like. I just clicked on the complete right join. And so this is everyone will have complete data for all of the cases that are also in the potential income data set. What questions do we have now? How are things looking? How are we feeling? It has started to snow here. Kate, you looked outside. We don't live in the same
Immediately
state.
looked out my window. Well, I was just curious.
Is it snowing there as well?
No. Mowgli's checking the weather. He's a weather cat, but
Cat meteorologist.
got to make a living somehow.
I know. Got to get all that recycling together so that he can just climb in it.
Yeah. So maybe we should take a short break again.
Yeah.
So maybe 10 minutes, and then we have an hour for our last session. And if people are wiped out, you can join a little later or join us and then skip out a little earlier, whatever works for you. But we have a question before that, so you can read.
I appreciate.
Questions are great, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, we like questions. We want this was the goal. We want there to be problems because usually in workshops you don't have them, or they're very straightforward. So we have a question: if there is a missing name and state for a participant, would they potentially be listed as two separate participants since their data couldn't be joined? So if they do not have if they don't have this by column, so if they don't have the name of the college or the state is not listed, then I don't think they would be included because you don't have something to merge them as.
Which I guess would make sense, right? For like the usual thing is merging by ID number. So if they didn't have an ID number, yeah. Yeah.
And usually this gets into larger data sets and how often you create databases, and you want to have linking variables between each of them and making sure that they're consistent across. I think if it can't find a match and you have if you only want like left or right join, if it can't find a match, it kicks it out. Whereas full join, it will likely include everyone. I think there's also an inner join, which is only complete cases or like cases that match on those two. Let's see if that is a thing. Yeah. So that is a thing. But we will be taking a quick break and come back at the hour. So 1 o'clock Central Time. No, yes.
Yeah, it's like 8 minutes. I don't know if you want to do 1:05.
There you go. Do it. But we'll stick around. I'm going to stop the recording, and